And of course, it starts with mute. Welcome everyone to Egypt's celebration of the World Angel Investors Week. I'll just be waiting a minute for people to start joining us, and then we will start our celebrations right away. And this time, I'll make sure I'm not on mute. Thank you. Okay, let's get our celebrations started. Once again, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for the Egypt celebrations of the World Angel Investors Week 2022, which is one of our main and keynote celebrations of the World Business Angel Investment Forum. My name is Dr. Hanan El Basha. I am the Senator for Egypt with the World Business Angel Investment Forum, and I have had the privilege and the honor to be chairing Egypt's celebrations for this week. As you might have heard by now, the celebrations of the World Angel Investment Week have been, or Investors Week, have been going across 132 countries, with at least tens of countries actively celebrating and organizing very insightful panels, roundtables, keynote speeches, all addressing the topics that we are most concerned about in this time and day. And this is why the theme for this week, it's all about business transformation for the business transformation for post-pandemic economies. I have envisioned Egypt's celebrations to be focusing on part of that, or an element of what we call the business transformation. And we will be talking about the transformation of womenpreneurship in post-pandemic Egypt. Now, the main themes when we were talking about the inclusion or the G20 affiliation of the WBAW, it's about gender, reducing the gender disparity. It is about empowerment. It is about financial inclusion. It is about digitalization. And these are all elements that we could have been talking about. These are topics that have been up and running and we've been talking about for a long time. But of course, as we know, the pandemic has impacted a lot of economies and a lot of businesses from that perspective. When we are talking about economies, we are talking about mostly that are made up of small and medium enterprises and even micro enterprises. And these worldwide have accounted to anywhere between 95 and 99% of worldwide economies. And we have seen how the pandemic has impacted a lot of these companies, with a lot of them shutting down, with a lot of them having to pivot and divert and change their business strategies to be able to cope and to be able to survive in such challenging times. That being said, it is also very known that small and medium enterprises have a lot of resilience and are agile, a lot of terms that we have been using over the past couple of years, which means that they are able to do that without a lot of friction and a lot of change. And this enables them to be able to accommodate the changing and shifting dynamics of the markets and the economies around them. Now, why is this important? Again, SMEs are chaperones for innovation. They are chaperones for job creations, and they're definitely contributors to worldwide economies and contributors to the GDP collectively, not necessarily each by themselves, but also collectively. Now, if we talk about women, and I'm going to be talking specifically about women in Egypt, we are talking about the land of the pharaohs and the land of approximately 110 million inhabitants, of which those approximately 50% are women. And yet, as per the National Council for Women, 16% of the businesses are registered by women. So when we think about all of this, we think of how do we empower more women to take that plunge, to be able to be empowered by having their own business, to bring their creativity, their expertise, their knowledge, and their experiential knowledge. Because again, a lot of them are involved in corporate careers. A lot of them have been working 20, 30, 40 years, and yet do not feel that they are empowered enough, whether by knowledge, by practical experience, by the infrastructure, the frameworks, whatever it is, the finances, of course, and that's why we'll be talking about this today, when it comes to starting up their own business. Again, statistically, we're talking about at least 85% of companies, and these are kind of worldwide statistics, that will not make it past the 5-year mark. So today, we will be talking about the transformation of womenpreneurship in post-pandemic Egypt. We are seeing a lot of initiatives, government-led and private-led, and even jointly. And these are even joined not just by the public or the private sector, but these are also joined by organizations, world organizations that are coming in and supporting more initiatives to support women. These include funds, these include practical knowledge, empowerment on every level. We're talking economic empowerment, financial empowerment, practical empowerment in business. So we have many ministries that are coming up with a lot of initiatives and a lot of programs to support entrepreneurs in Egypt. Some of them have come up and made it gender specific to support women. We're seeing a lot of the handicrafts. Egypt is a big country. So we're not just talking about initiatives that are coming out of Cairo. We are talking about initiatives that are crossing across all the governance of Egypt. And this includes a lot of women who are already involved one way or another in supporting and being the main providers for their families. And thus, how do we keep empowering them further? And how do we make sure that they have what they need to be able to go further? So from that perspective, I will be joined today by a very prominent and distinguished panel of women from all across Egypt, from the framework, as I like to think of it, from the entrepreneurial framework. We have the 5 E's of entrepreneurship. We have enrolls. So we have the enticers first, and this is everyone who is involved within the government, whether we're talking about working with them or within the government themselves, and they are the enticers. They're the ones that set up the strategies and set up the infrastructure to support entrepreneurs. We have the educators, the accelerators, the incubators, everyone who's involved in the day-to-day to ensure that entrepreneurs are empowered. We have the enablers, and these are the ones that go over and above, of course, with the funding and investment and everything, but also with the networking, the setup, and everything that goes. And we have the entrepreneurs themselves. And I'm proud to say that we have representatives, women representatives from every element and every role today, serving the economy in their own way. As I will be talking to them today, I'll have the honor of having a keynote conversation, let's call it that, with Ms. Niveen Al-Tahri, who is not only a parliament member in the lower parliament of Egypt, House of Parliament of Egypt, she's also the founder and chairperson of Delta Inspire for Investment, and she has so many roles. I'm just so excited about delving into this conversation with her. We also have 2 panels, one of them talking about the transformation of womenpreneurship in post-pandemic Egypt from the business lens, and another one followed by, moderated by the very distinguished India, and she will be talking to the ladies about the funding and investment lens from that perspective. So without further ado, I will just start with a keynote or a welcome message from our executive chairman for the WBAF, the World Business Angel Investment Forum, Mr. Baybars Altontes, and then I will start the conversation right away with Ms. Niveen Al-Tahri.
Dear presidents, dear prime ministers, dear ministers, continental chairs, country chairs, and dear participants. Even before the COVID-19 pandemic, business transformation was a concern of big companies. But now it is imperative, and not just for large enterprises. Even the smallest companies and organizations must transform their business as a matter of urgency in order to cope with dynamics of the post-pandemic business environment. Surveys revealed that most small companies and entrepreneurs in the startup economy are suffering financially. Their plight will become even more serious if they have not been able to complete their business transformation before the new normal sets in. The challenge is this: business transformation is not a cheap process. How realistic is it to encourage entrepreneurs to invest in business transformation when they are struggling just to meet their short-term expenses? Given this situation, as an affiliated partner of the G20 Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion, the World Business Angels Investment Forum invites policymakers to develop smart policies that will provide financial support for startups, scale-ups, SMEs, and all entrepreneurs to help them transform their business. WBAW believes that more public-private partnerships should be mobilized for this purpose, and governmental recovery plans need to include financial support for entrepreneurs' business transformation efforts. Governments must be alerted to the fact that unless small companies receive financial support for transforming their business, they will not be able to survive in post-pandemic times. This means their capacity to create more jobs and social wealth for economies will be lost. I would like to thank in advance all the stakeholders and partners who will be contributing to World Business Angel Investors Week 2022. They will be highlighting the importance of business transformation for post-pandemic times, the topic of this year's event. I believe to grow and thrive in a post-pandemic world, swift business transformation into a pandemic-proof organizational model is vital if we are to ensure the sustainability of world economies in the new normal. I would like to thank the organizing committee and colleagues who will be taking roles as continental chairs, country chairs, global partners, keynote speakers, and panel discussants. Their combined efforts will create value for the world's startup economies, not only during this week, but in the future as well. They will focus on harnessing the collective knowledge of the world's most influential women leaders, policymakers, entrepreneurs, and artists, with a view to addressing critical issues of early-stage equity markets in the new normal. This week will be a great platform from which to campaign for solutions to such critical issues and other worldwide concerns at the United Nations, the European Union, and in G20 countries and regional and local economies. World Business Angel Investors Week 2022 is celebrated in 132 countries of 5 continents and 2 regions, with more than 200,000 participants from around the world, 320 keynote speakers, 765 distinguished panel speakers, addresses of 12 presidents, 6 prime ministers, 32 ministers. This is really great. And it is a great pleasure for the World Business Angels Investment Forum to coordinate this particular event of the world globally. The ultimate goal of all of the week's keynotes, discussions, presentations, and workshops is to agree on a common roadmap for entrepreneurs, startups, and SMEs that will enable them to emerge from this pandemic period even stronger than they were before. I have good news, by the way. The next World Congress of Angel Investors will be in person on 25 and 26 of October in Antalya of Turkey. This will be the first global convergence of world investors, public funds, startups, angel investors, wealth management institutions after Mr. COVID started traveling around the world. So I am very excited to see all of you in person next October in Antalya. And our Congress topic will be digital transformation for post-pandemic economies. We will discuss this week business transformation, and we will discuss digital transformation next October in Turkey. And we will collect all our collective knowledge and we'll go on striving to empower the world economy through innovation, entrepreneurship, and angel investment. I'm confident that each participant in the World Business Angel Investors Week will benefit from the collaborative ideas, know-how exchange, training programs and workshops, and global networking opportunities that are offered. I believe that by working together across borders with a common vision and smart dynamics in mind, we are well placed to bring about positive change in the global economy. Thank you very much for joining our global efforts to ease access to finance for entrepreneurs, promote gender equality, increase financial inclusion, and promote the importance of digital inclusion for post-pandemic times. Thank you.
Well, that was the welcome message from our executive chairman, Mr. Beybar Saltuntas. And I have the ultimate pleasure and honor of having Ms. Naveen Al-Tahri with me here today. And this is where we kick off our discussion. Ms. Naveen, are you there with me?
Yes, I am.
Yes, we can't see you though yet.
I think I'm locked from your end. So
hang on, let's, oh my God, where is this?
It says you can't start because the host has stopped it. So come on, host.
Oh, I didn't stop this. I didn't stop this. How can we do this? This is where I love it that, you know, we kind of have, let's just make you co-host. Of course, this is an honor. So
okay.
Can you start the video now, please?
Okay,
yes,
there we go.
There we go.
Thank you, Hanan, for having me. Honestly, it's really a pleasure to be here.
My ultimate pleasure and honor. There isn't anyone that I have spoken to within the regional ecosystem that I said, Ms. Naveen Al-Tahri, like, of course. And I'm like, yes, I have landed my big ticket by just having this conversation with you. It is an honor. Thank you for accepting and thank you for your time in advance.
It's I who have to really thank you, because looking at the lineup of your panelists and speakers, I'm honored to be with them. So honestly, it's really my pleasure, and so it's up to you. Go ahead and kick off. Let me know when I start.
Let's kick this off. So as I had introduced, you are a parliament member. You're also the chairperson of Delta Inspire for Investments. I know that your CV goes up about a good 8 pages. So excuse me, this is just so inspiring talking to you, because you not only started a career within the corporate banking, you have taken all of these elements with you, but you've also been in the entrepreneurial world for a good 30 years. And you have taken on many roles, many board roles, even being the first woman on the Egyptian Stock Exchange, and just sharing so many experiences, not only in Egypt, but also on a regional and international level. So I would love for you, please, just to give us a couple of minutes. I know it's difficult to jam it in, but a couple of minutes just talking about your roles and your kind of overall entrepreneurial experience to this point in time.
I mean, again, I have to thank you, because I think the angel investing world is still at its infancy within the region. So it's such an important topic to be talking about. And as much as we keep hearing SMEs, they really have not kicked off as we would like them to. So what you are actually harping on today is of great relevance and very timely. I'll start by saying I was never a feminist. And the reason is because I'm one of 3 sisters, the eldest of sisters, and was actually brought up in a diplomatic family, which never showed the differentiation, because there wasn't a boy around. So when I started my entrepreneurial journey, it brought itself to be being focused on women, because I started in a very financial industry, and it was just starting. And I think this is, you know, that circumstances alter cases, as they say. And so when I always like to say, when I was being given the license on the stock exchange, the chairman, everybody who went in for an exam would just take 10, 15 minutes. I went in and I was there for 2 hours. And as I was walking out, he said, by the way, if you are given the license, it's because you have a good reputation as a banker. And I thought that gives you how, because of your gender, you are being judged in a different way. When I started my first brokerage company, it was very much, I'm the first to be sitting on the exchange in the middle of the stock exchange. And at the time we had to be ourselves there. And I was being asked, why are you here? Why are you here? It was all a men's environment. And it was because of that I started hiring a lot of women into the company. And all of a sudden I had 80% of my staff being women. And reason is, I know that women multitask and are able to do 1,000 things at the same time. And today, when we look at the push that women are being given, it's of such relevance because they represent 50% of the population. And hence the speed of how you can bring along the value of their contribution to your GDP and to your society is unbelievable, especially that women, when you include them in the financial sector, what is really important is they don't spend the money on themselves as much as they spend on the well-being of their direct family or indirect family. So I think entrepreneurship for women is actually much easier, and not easier because it's an easy journey. It's easier because we're expected to fail. And because we're expected to fail, we outsmart whoever is expecting us to fail. And I think
I love that feeling.
and honestly, so to a great extent, I always feel that women have something that they back on. Yani, it could be the parents, it could be their surroundings. There is the I will strive to make it happen. And I mean, you're an example, and every one of the names that I saw on that list of panelists that you're listening to is exactly the same. We're achievers and we want to make it happen. And it's not about the money. It's never about the money. It's about the success and the impact that you are going to bring to your surrounding that is so important. So the reason why I went into entrepreneurship and how I went in was by mere coincidence. I left the job, started something, and then the capital markets opened. But my first company, and I always try I was 35 years old. So basically I'm not really that young. But I was the oldest in the brokerage industry, which is, you see people that are 20 and 21 and 22 on the floor. But the capital requirement that was there at the time was less than $5,000. I mean, it wasn't even $5,000. But that $5,000 was basically the seed that started where I started. And it's how you pivot your way towards knowing what the market environment is and how I can do it. And the way I chose to take it was, if this is a man's world, the best thing was to partner with huge institutions. So you hide behind the institution's name, but you're the person who's doing everything there. And I mean, an example I give always is ABN AMRO Bank, which is the Dutch bank. Their financials was 5 times the size of the financials of Egypt, and yet their partnership allowed me to be Delta, ABN AMRO Delta. And I think as I merged and I exited and I partnered and all that, it allowed me to understand the difficulties and also the successes that you can do as an entrepreneur. And from there, I started angel investing at the very beginning, and it came in at a very much earlier stage, which was, I think, 2007, after having succeeded on the large exchange and sold my companies, made money, and started investing in young people. And it was at the same timing that my daughter was graduating, and all her friends were those bright, she comes from the German upbringing, and all of a sudden they're coming to Tante Niveen to understand how and then I saw the education that young generation has, which is much higher than what we had as a generation. And I think this was the starting point where I started angel investing in young people and in young companies. Doesn't have to be young in age, but as young companies. And from there, went into venture capital. And my partners and LPs that actually are think like me, gave me money to invest in those startups and early stage startups. And I can tell you that it was after the revolution. And when I look at where we went, we invested in 15 companies, and before the pandemic, we had created 1,000 jobs. And it just shows you that these young companies, what they can create. I would love to give, if I have time.
Of course, you have all the time you need.
No, just the examples of having this venture capital. And me being the GP, as they call it, the general partner. Most of the investments that we made were women-led companies, and that in itself made me feel how women feel more comfortable. The fact that you are a woman and that you would understand where you can help and where you can grow them. And so most of the companies we invested in were women-led companies. And I give a few examples. My biggest employer of the companies that we have is a company called Total Fix. It's a facility management companies. And the story is an unbelievable story. The husband and his wife and a few friends created this company as a facility management company. Very early on, after we just partnered, he died very young. And the wife, Salma Melash, took over the company. And this company, what is the beauty about it is every contract that they sign would hire no less than 20 to 30 people, because they would take on the facility management of the buildings. And so today they have about 30 or 40 companies that use them, of the international names. And you know that Egyptians don't like to be workers at home. They would go to Jordan, they would go to anywhere, but they would not work as workers. All of a sudden, she created this company where it is with a contract, and they're hidden under, and these are very well educated. There are no jobs, very much like the Uber concept. And hence, they have today something like 250 employees. And so that's an example of what women can do to other women that were created as jobs. We were the first to invest in fashion, and it became more fashionable to have investments in fashion now. Exactly. And so we were the first company to invest in fashion. We have Timraza, who became a red carpet dressing. Saara, an equestrian apparel, a young girl. And we have a full tank, which is food, and a girl that has strived, Huda Hosni, tried everything, very difficult competition, and still striving to today. The Works, which is entertainment, and two women, much older with experience. So the thing is, I conclude by saying that financial inclusion means that we need to provide the tools. We need the know-how, the knowledge, not just raising the money, but how do you manage? How do you understand what needs to be done and what's there? So from all of us women on your panels today, I think we can give a great example of how we can be of help and support each other, which is even more important.
I love that. Well, you've addressed the whole essence of what I wanted to address with you, which is the role of women in accelerating financial inclusion. And starting with, as you said, what is financial inclusion? Financial inclusion is making sure that you have the tools. And being a feminist doesn't mean that you're opposite the side. It just means that you have more understanding and compassion and empathy with what a woman has, the different roles they have to play, what elements they bring, and what core competences and differences in perspective that they can bring to the entrepreneurial world. But more importantly, I think one of the elements that you address, and that is something that is really important, that I think we pride ourselves as women, is the perseverance, is not taking no for an answer, is the creativity in finding a solution to be able to still go on and still add value. And
Hanan, I would just add,
yes, please.
Ask. We need to ask.
Yes.
The problem is we women do not ask.
Yes.
We shy and we don't ask what we need. Ask.
Yes. And but again, because if we look at the statistics, they're being kind of put up against us. Statistically, we're talking anywhere between 0.2 to 2% of funding goes to women-owned or women-led businesses. And women get to go in front of investors and VCs and everything, and they get to ask questions that are not asked to men, such as, are you married? Do you have children? Do you intend? How committed are you? I know personally when I was starting one of our businesses with two of my partners, and I went and we were getting, this was a retail concept, so we were getting a retail outlet, and the retail manager asked me, he's like, I don't know if you are committed, because two of the partners are women of the three. It's like, I don't know if you're just housewives entertaining yourselves or you're going to be committed to the business. And I was like, oh my God, in this age, how could you, how could you ask me such a question? But these are the kind of elements we say. That's why when I say I love having these conversations and highlighting more of the women conversations, not to say let's sit and complain, but let's sit and highlight these are the issues, and how do we have inclusive conversations? We're not having this conversation in a vacuum. We want men involved in the conversation. We want them to understand what we go up against and how all of us can facilitate and can create a platform where women are more included and are more involved so they can come up with solutions. So from that perspective, I would love to ask you a bit more actually about, now, we spoke about innovation and we spoke about the creativity of women. What have you been seeing across the pandemic? We know with the lockdowns, there have been a lot of women that started saying, hang on, I can do a bit more. Have you seen that trend?
Yes, I mean, it's a very interesting question, honestly, because the pandemic, I did something that I'm not sure if it's the wrong or the right thing. But when I started the venture capital, I decided that I was not going to invest in technology. And the reason I chose that is everybody else is actually investing in technology. And and technology is no longer, it's a must-have. So it's an enabler. So I decided to take on brick and mortar type of businesses, and then you add on the technology. And because of that, the pandemic brought everything that is technology-based as opposed to those companies. And so it was very tough time for the companies that we have invested in. But I will give you an example on the creativity where it is. How do you pivot? And the example of Total Fix. Total Fix is absolutely, I mean, what happened in the pandemic is nobody's going to the offices and nobody is, so the cleaning and the maintenance and all that came down. But what did she pivot into? The sanitizers. And so she created something that was for sanitization, and be it in the offices, in everything. And so you had to think of a way out. I think when I look at the food industry, it became much more online anyway. So the enabler of the e-commerce and ability to, so this is where we say that creativity came in, because they had to either survive or die.
Yeah.
The areas where it was much more difficult is entertainment, because there wasn't much of an entertainment that's
Yes,
there.
that's true.
Fashion probably went down tremendously because you're not going out and you're not. So
Only dressing up.
Exactly.
The top of.
So I think when you look at it, I always tell any entrepreneur as they start a business, don't stick into what I have to or what you have decided to do, because you will find your way pivoting in all cases, because the circumstances are moving and shifting. I cannot just sit there and say, but this is the business plan I did, and this is how I'm going to do it. But you have to take advice, and you have to take, that's where we as older generation can give that advice that links between the younger generation, who I actually think are much brilliant in terms of the innovation, and marrying them with what it is that can be done. So yes, it's creativity, innovation have come tremendously. We see today how many people are doing the arts work. I mean, art was never there, and all of a sudden art is up. So I think we at Egypt are in such a beautiful space where everything is, the more problems you have, the more innovation that you're going to have, and the much more your ability to bring on things. So I think we're in the starting point. I think you have a lot of work to do, Hanan.
Yes.
And we're waiting on it. And especially that you are at the right time. I think women can really make a difference when they have the courage and the support that they need, not just money-wise, but money and know-how.
I love that, because I was just about to ask you that. I've been on panels where women are saying enough empowering with knowledge and the know-how and everything. More women need to sign checks. Women need more money. How important do you think, and especially from the Egyptian woman perspective, how important do you see, or what kind of percentage do you see the funding part versus the actual enabling of the knowledge base? And like, you know, if I give you money and you don't know what to do with it, you don't have the business experience, you don't have the tacit knowledge, the one that you've worked with your hand with, how important is money then?
Well, it's very important. Unfortunately, as you really captured it, we don't get the money easily. I mean, I still see it until today. I don't get what I want. I would love to get what I want, but I'm not yet able to. And I see my men's club.
Yes.
Bringing it much easier, although you have the experience and everything. So it still requires a lot of hard work, and money is very important, maybe today more than anything, because it's difficult to bring money along today, and we're seeing what the world is going through. And so we're being equated to what others may have done, but we women are very responsible people. I mean, when you look at women, they don't know how to give a bribe. They don't know how to do things that are not illegal. Not that I'm saying the men do, but I think it's because the system allows you to do certain things, women will not go that way. They'll pay their taxes exactly. They will put their pay documents exactly. So it's much tougher. So the money is an extremely important factor. And maybe if I would say previously it was a 50-50 to know-how, I'd probably put it at a much higher percentage today than it was before.
From your perspective, or from your experience, where do you see women having the most challenges? In the idea stage, in the traction or launch, traction, or the growth and scaling?
I think the growth.
Growth.
I think it's the growth, yeah. I mean, seed funding is easier. Okay. When angel investing may be easier, but I think it's the growth part where this is the more difficult part, where you really have to put in. I mean, it's not credibility, is not the right word. Is how am I going to do it? Okay, I did this part. How am I going to do it in the next part? So I think that's the more challenging one for women.
Do you think, is it from the perspective of they need more strategies and knowledge from that perspective, or is it because this is the stage where it needs a lot of funding to be able to look at this?
I honestly, I think it's for women and men. Yeah, the growth part is difficult for everybody,
Okay.
and I think that's where probably we need a lot more of statistical knowledge, because we tend to follow each other. Yani you will have one company that does an Uber, we have 10 companies that will do an Uber, a sort of thing. You have one company
Yes.
that does, it's the easier way. It's just like when we go into the gold shop, the gold area, they all are selling gold. So I think the challenge of is how you differentiate yourself, and hence comes, and I think that is doable.
Yes.
The differentiation is doable. So you need to put that in perspective. You need to put the projections for it and show how you're going to do it. In not just terms of the staffing of it and the expertise that you need in order to take it.
And that's where the unique value proposition is very important, to be able to identify that, because, you know, I always take up the example of, you walk into a supermarket and you've got 20 different types of loaves of bread. That doesn't mean that, you know, there's no place in the bread market.
Exactly.
How are you differentiating yourself? And that's what we're seeing a lot of also. I'm not going to say just women, but startups are excelling from that perspective, understanding that they're bringing something different. They're doing it. They're seeing the gap. They're doing it differently. We've seen that. Even you brought up the example of food before. We've seen that with the new gluten-free options and the new allergy options and the new nut butters and all of this. This was not part of the market or part of the offering at least 10 or 15 years ago.
True.
So innovation, I guess. Innovation. The determination, the perseverance, and being open to support women and to be actually sharing. I think also part, and I believe this is what you do, and I love that you do that, is sharing both the challenges, the drawbacks, the lessons, you know, all the things that went wrong as people from the outside.
Yes.
Because I think that gives also an example that it's not over. It's just part of the journey.
And it's a difficult journey.
And it is a difficult journey. We have to also be realistic about our expectations, but also know when to pivot and how to pivot. And as you also thankfully said, look for the support system to be able to support you along the way. Exactly. I would love for you, of course, you know, I can go on and talk with you for like 2 hours, but I will respect your time, and thank you so much. But I would love for you, would you give us closing words on what advice would you give to women entrepreneurs in Egypt, looking whether they started during the pandemic or they survived the pandemic, to start looking on how to thrive post-pandemic?
Actually, never give up, and you'll get there. It's tough, but once you are able to cut through the difficult part, the reward is unbelievable. And it's not just for you. Remember, we women, you actually provide wealth for the less fortunate by bringing in companies. So every single job you bring on is you are bringing in a family that you are impacting. So never give up, and make sure that you ask when you need to ask. That's it.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ms. Nabila.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I am honored on so many levels, and I can't wait to see you in person and have a lot more conversations.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, Hanan, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
And challenging work.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. So we have had this amazing conversation. I'm so pleased to it. And of course, as we start now, we are going on to another amazing panel discussion, which I will have the honor of moderating. And I'm seeing that 2 of my 4 panelists are here. So let's just get them in. Where? Okay, this is where I start getting confused. Noha and Ola, hi. I'm sorting out the just the technology part. Would you please try putting on your video? Let's see why the video isn't working today.
Hi, Dr. Hanan.
Hi guys. Okay, let's see if the video is working for everyone. Your settings.
Not here. I
No,
think it's
huh?
disabled. You're the
This
one
is
who
really
has.
Oh, it's not working.
This is no.
Yeah. Okay. Apparently I disabled it for the participants. So I'm sorry about that. Just a second. Bear with me.
Oh, trust me, it's okay. It's a Saturday afternoon. Yeah, you've saved the audience. Like, yeah.
No. We have to see this part of the experience. I just have to let's see. Let me see my webinar settings, and then accordingly, of course, this is the part where I need my glasses. Okay.
Perhaps if you make us
Co-hosts.
yeah,
Let's
exactly.
try the co-host part.
Yeah.
Make co-host. Okay. Noha, can you try now? Paula. Hi, Mona.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, it's working. Hi, Dr. Hanan.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
So we're
Hello.
missing Rania is also to be joining us. So let's just, there we go. Let's put this spotlights for everyone. It's like, and you get a spotlight, and you get a spotlight. Okay, ladies, we're missing Rania, but I'm sure Rania will be joining us anytime now. It is a pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us today and for accepting the invitation. I'm always super excited about having these conversations. This is this panel for everyone who's joining us and for everyone who is still with us. This conversation and this panel of conversation is about transformation of womenpreneurship in post-pandemic Egypt, and all the amazing ladies I have with me here will be talking from the business perspective, and the next panel will be talking from the investment and funding perspective. And no, why women? It doesn't mean that we're just biased towards women. We are just highlighting some of the challenges that women have as entrepreneurs, whether in the Egyptian market, the African market, or even the MENA region as a whole. And I'm sure these are some of the trends that are shared by worldwide entrepreneurship ecosystems. But also the more important part of the conversation, and I would love to highlight on, is the part that talks about the opportunities for women entrepreneurs in post-pandemic Egypt. So without further ado, I'm going to be doing a very brief introduction, or actually just introducing your names, and then I will ask you please to introduce yourselves in alphabetical order at this point in time for my distinguished panelist. Mona Al-Khishan is the co-founder and CEO of Egyptian Professional Network and Unlock. Hi, Mona.
Hello, how are you?
Fine.
Do you want me to go ahead and do a quick intro?
I'll just go through the ladies and then definitely come back to you. Noha Shaker is the founder and also the head of the Egyptian FinTech Association and the African FinTech Association. Hi, Noha.
Hello, Hanan. Hi, ladies.
And Aula Solomon is the founder and managing partner of 360 Legal. Hi, Aula.
Hi, Dr. Hanan. How are you?
So, of course, I just mentioned one of the titles of these amazing women, and their CVs, just like I was saying with Ms. Naveen Tahir, is just extends pages upon pages. Their responsibilities extend and into multiple roles. And I think this is one of the beautiful things when I talk about women, and of course men. I know they do that too, but I'm going to be highlighting women over here today, is the many roles and the many hats that they take on, and how their journeys transform, and as Ms. Naveen was just saying, impacting not just one person in their circle, but maybe up to 1 million people in their circle, depending on how far their impact go. Mona, I would love for you to share with us for a couple of minutes what you do, how you've come here, and the multiple roles that you are playing.
Sure. Thank you, Hanan, for inviting me. I'm loving all the conversations already, and I find it very inspiring. So I wear two hats, which are synergistic, but also quite different. And I think hopefully that would make the conversation quite interesting. My first hat is I'm the founder of Egyptian Professionals Network, or EPN, which is a business networking community. We have 11,000 Egyptian business leaders and professionals in leadership positions from all around the world across 90 countries. And I am also the co-founder of Unlock, which is business services marketplace, connecting companies that offer business services with the companies who are looking for these services, such as marketing, accounting, legal, financial agencies, etc. Why do I say that the two hats are interesting? Because with EPN, I actually get to, I have the privilege of like seeing things at a more of a, macro or higher level, because we have so many different organizations represented within EPN. And through Unlock, I am myself a female startup founder, currently going through my fundraising, my first fundraising stage, and seeking investment, and going through all the challenges of building a startup from the ground level up in Egypt. So I'm actually seeing the challenges and the issues and the potential both at the ground level and at the slightly higher level. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Mona. In my intro, I said that I think of the 5 E's of entrepreneurship. I think of the enticers first, and that is mostly the role that the government plays in everything, setting up the strategy and then putting in all the foundations. And then we're talking about the educators, and these are more the people that are involved within the incubators, the accelerators, and everyone to support the entrepreneurs. Thinking of the enablers, and these are the ones that have the funding, are able to support from that perspective, but also have the networking abilities and the introductions and everything, and of course the entrepreneur, and all to support the economy. So that's why it was very important and that's why I said each one of you plays a different role within the 4 or 5 E's, and I love that about this conversation. Noha, I would go to you, please.
Thank you very much, Hanan, for having me. And I have to thank Naveen Hanan for the inspirational speech, like the perfect opening for the 2 panels that are going to be happening today. Pleased to meet you, ladies. And hello, good afternoon to all our the participants, the ones who are watching us out there. Thank you very much for being here today. I wear multiple hats. I run a couple of non-for-profits, the Egyptian Fintech Association and the Africa Fintech Network. We mainly work on building that enabling environment, not just for fintechs, but for tech-enabled solutions that can make can lessen the effect of the exclusivity of not just financial services, but about every service that there is around Egypt and Africa. So we're mainly in fintech, supporting fintech startups and supporting the digitization journeys and the innovation strategies of the incumbents, but we're also in tech in general to guarantee the inclusivity of the services that are going to be mostly offered digitally within the very foreseeable future, and of course to make sure that we embed the customized financial services that can meet the needs and the demands of the least privileged individuals, and of course women are amongst those, as well as micro, small and medium businesses as well. I'm also a partner in an investment company called WBAW Partners. It's a company that's been up and running for over 20 years now, mainly in the Far East region, presence and operations in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, lately Pakistan. And we are actually building a green SME transitioning fund that supports green businesses to scale or existing SMEs to transition into green. That we are going to be launching that soon, but that is there. I also advise the UKA through one of the non-for-profits that operate in Africa, FSD Africa, that mainly works on the policy advocacy, regulatory reform, as well as building the right infrastructure to make the financial industry work for Africa's development and future. What else do I do? Yep, I run a boutique consulting firm as well that works on the incumbent side of the equation. So I work with banks, insurance companies, leasing companies, telecommunications companies, and of course investment companies to build their internal and open innovation strategies to make sure that they contribute to more or less the exact same objectives that we're working on. So they all complement one another. It's all towards a more inclusive financial industry and industries in general. Thank you very much.
I love that, Noha. Thank you so much. And I think as Mona was just saying, I think everything we do has synergy. Somehow they all add up to the bigger picture. We might not be seeing it now, but it is true. Aula, please, give us your introduction and the multiple roles that you play.
Thank you, Dr. Hanan, for the introduction, and thank you, ladies. And it is a pleasure to sit on today's panel with such great speakers. I'm the founder and managing partner of 360 Legal. I have over 10 years of experience in corporate and commercial law, with leading international and local law firms in Egypt, in which I gained my expertise and worked with the clients and learned a lot about the market. And this is where I got inspired to establish 360 Legal with the aim to support startups and SMEs, especially the women-led businesses.
And I think that is one of the most interesting things, and one of the things I don't think we talk about enough, the legal aspect of the business setup. And that's why I was very excited to invite you to this panel discussion as we start talking about business. So thank you all so much. Thank you for being here. I think we had Rania, and then something possibly happened with her connection. So I'm sending her again, and I'm hoping that she will be able to join us. Rania Ayman. Okay, something is wrong with her connection. Let me just, excuse me, ladies, let me try to send her again. Just technology, right? Know how we were just talking about technology. So this is the technology part.
Technology is what we bring out of it. So let us not blame technology, please, because that happens all the time.
Not at all. I'm a huge believer in technology, and yes, I understand we have to go through the challenges of technology to be able to kind of appreciate how it works for us. Ladies, I wanted to start with you the question that I kind of ended with Ms. Nareen with, which is, from your perspective, what is one of the most challenging kind of phases for women starting their business? Are we talking the idea stage, the launch stage, traction, or the growth and scaling? Let's start with you, Mona.
Okay, I'll share my own perspective, but also I kind of read a little bit about the subject, and so I'll also try and share some of the statistical trends as well. I think there's several layers. One of them is the emotional or psychological layer of, number one, belief. So believing that that women can start and grow and scale successful businesses, even in very difficult industries, which could traditionally not be associated with women, for example, like fintech. So there was a recent report by the World Bank on startups in Africa, actually, where they interviewed 2,400 startups, and they found out that one of the main challenges for women is the confidence, the belief when pitching. Their confidence levels when pitching, and also their belief that they can actually raise funding. So when it comes to that part, I think having in our closed network, having access to and visibility of successful examples of female founders and entrepreneurs, whether in the family, your friend circle, or professional circle. And this is where, the power of communities comes in as well. Rania Ayman, of course, her community entrepreneurial is full of female founders. One of the things I'm very proud of is not by design. It just so happened that EPN, which is a business networking community for both men and women, actually nearly 50% of our members are women, and that just happened, and so I'm very proud that actually in Egypt, when you look around, there are many successful examples, but you don't necessarily always have access to them or enough visibility over them. So I think showcasing this, that's number one. Number two, I would say definitely formal access to mentorship, training, enabling programs. You mentioned the educators and the enablers, etc., and also the access to the funding. So in prep for this session, I kind of reflected a little bit, and I realized that over the course of the last 12 months alone, I was made aware of a number of programs and accelerators and incubators and different types of programs that are aimed at female founders. But I kind of just found out about them as I went along. You know, whenever somebody sees something that's relevant, they would share it with me because I'm a female startup founder, and also because I have EPN and I might share it with the network. So I think I'm in a little bit of a privileged position whereby if people come across these things, they share them with me. But I realized that another female startup founder might not necessarily easily have access to all that information. And also I kind of just come up, this information, I come across it almost haphazardly by chance as I go, but I realized that there isn't like a single point, reference point or resource where any startup female founder can go online, for example, and see all the different programs that are available, all the different communities and networks, and the different funds and the different things that she or they, if there are multiple founders, could apply for. So I'll stop here to give the rest of the panelists the chance to share their thoughts as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your insights, Mona. Noha, from your perspective, is it about access to networks, to the information, to be able to have even the entrepreneurial mindset and the entrepreneurial readiness to stand up and ask for what you need?
Well, definitely that contextual element that is there. So talking about social norms that affects the self-perception, and then the, again, belief in oneself and the trust that we could do it, access to certain industries that are mostly male dominated industries, the financial industry is one of which. And like we have Nadine Hanan with a banking industry background and finance in general, Hanan on the coming panel, like all within investment. And so there are certain industries as well that are mainly male dominated. The support of the family and the household, balancing the responsibilities of being in charge of a household, and again, not having a partner who's supportive or who understands and believes, and that the role of women goes beyond just bringing up families and looking after kids and the like. I mean, we have the capacity to multitask and do, like, bring up families and raise kids while running a couple of things simultaneously. But again, it takes a lot of understanding, of course, and support from the husband. So if I am asked what's the most challenging phase, it would be the building phase. So for you to get that consensus, to set things in order, to have the right mindset in place, to select the right industry and the right business to get into based on the skill sets that you've already accumulated and developed all through your career and working life, if any, and of course to match that with the market needs and what can be successful and scalable. That, in my opinion, is that laying the foundation in there is what makes or breaks the business going forward. So that stage, in my opinion, is the most challenging ever. Once you set that in order, then you're faced with other challenges. But again, doing that very early on is definitely very important.
Yes, I agree. Ola, what are your views on the most challenging part?
Well, actually, Noha touched on a very significant part, which is the foundation of the business, which something that I see a lot with the startups and the women startup in general, because sometimes they are not acquainted with the legalities or how to start the business, and which the best structure, which later on can lead to downturns, or can lead to downturns. So I think that one of the challenges actually is to build their business on a solid legal foundation, which will help them start, grow, and scale, and which will make their business sustainable. They are mainly they get to be busy with the operations of the business and the planning, and sometimes they neglect the legalities part, which is a very important aspect to touch on from the early on, which will save a lot of hassles as they go with the things that I always see.
Well, taking from that perspective, and yes, understanding that setting up the company legally is not the first step that a woman would think of, or any entrepreneur. It's not like, they want to test it. And, speaking of the lean startup methods and everything, it's about customer validation and about, the idea, is it worth it? Are people responding to it and stuff? From your perspective, then let's talk about the pandemic and what that has done. And then I will tie it up, Ola, with the legal part and how the shift in the regulatory setup has been taking place since the pandemic. I think with the pandemic, we've seen, again, we've seen terms and usages of flexibility and agility and pivoting, and, let's talk about no more strategies. Let's see what's on ground now. And we have seen as well a lot of women starting up saying, you know what, okay, I'm still doing my corporate career, but let me start my own thing. I'm encouraged now. I have a bit more time or a bit more bandwidth for me to start looking at it. Mona, from your perspective, have you seen, and I think because of Unlock as well, have you seen that surge in women-led businesses during the pandemic?
I have, and I myself am one example of that. So I'm a live example here. So when the pandemic first started, I had a corporate career. I was living in the UK, had a leadership position in an American multinational, and I was building and managing EPN on the side. So that was like my passion project. And when the pandemic hit and we were all quarantined for several months at a row, I actually realized that there's a lot more that I would like to do for EPN, and also the original idea for Unlock was actually inspired by a need that we saw within the EPN community to connect clients with business services. So actually, I also decided to quit my job, move back to Egypt, and launch Unlock. So I'm one of those people that kind of just reevaluated my life choices and looked at all the time, the time distribution that I had, and decided to make the jump. I have seen a lot more people do that. I think we've seen the rise of, I mentioned Entrepreneurship at the beginning, but also communities, for example, like I Make This, which was born, I believe, during the pandemic, and it's a community for female small business owners who do crafts and other creative projects, and that grew exponentially and did very well, and actually enabled a lot of women who were sitting at home and not maybe able to have, because when we talk about female founders, it's not just tech startups, obviously, it's the whole microcosm, isn't it? And so that community, for example, enabled, I believe, tens of thousands of women to turn a hobby or a small craft into a business.
And services as well. They
yes.
It has the whole array of any women-owned, women-initiated business, and that I believe has also encouraged women to formalize their businesses because of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's an important statistic for us to remember in general, and that's over 80% of the purchasing power and decisions in a household are generally made by women. So if women control a large proportion of the consumption, then they also have quite a huge role to play in actually what's being produced, whether that's a good or a service as well. So yes, I think there's a rising trend. I think there's another also positive trend that came out of the pandemic and working from home. You know, you mentioned flexibility, agility, all that sort of stuff. But I think there's another part as well, which is normalizing parenthood. And pre-pandemic, you know, if we had corporate jobs or even we're leading businesses or whatever, you know, just a woman being seen on a Zoom call with children, or having to stay at home because you have a sick child, or, you know, having to go leave early because you need to attend the school play or whatever it wasn't necessarily as accepted as it is now. And I think
that frowned upon.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'm trying to be diplomatically correct.
No, it was frowned upon. I had it personally. I brought my son from nursery when I first started, and I took him to a meeting with the chairman in the Four Seasons, sat him next to me with some 7-Up. I was like, sorry, the nursery called me, I have to bring him in. And I'm like, okay. I was like, it's life. What could I do?
Right, but also more than that, and I think that's potentially even more significant is, and I said, normalizing parenthood, not motherhood on purpose, is because we've also seen a lot of fathers, you know, staying at home, working from home, taking care of children, having their kids, you know, on their laps in meetings. And I think as we've gradually went back to you know, a return to normality, we are, and I hope that continues, at least from the circuit that I see a lot more men, you know, dropping off kids at school, leaving their offices early to pick up kids from school. So I think I'm not going to say it's a 50-50 distribution now, but I think there is more involvement from fathers in childcare, and also more acceptance and more normalizing the fact that both moms and dads who work need to take care of kids as well. And I think that's a positive trend that we need to keep building on, you know, this momentum.
I love that. Thank you for highlighting. Noha, from your perspective, have you seen a surge in women entrepreneurship, especially since you're very involved in the fintech? And I know that, you know, we're looking at the overall, again, in terms of the regulations and everything, the National Bank of Egypt, Central Bank of Egypt, there are a lot of shifts when it comes to fintech and regulations and more enabling. Have you seen that impact women entrepreneurship?
Well, definitely it has impacted everybody, men and women operating in there. I mean, what the pandemic did was actually establishing new norms. So It's not just about working from home or accepting the fact that we're human beings and we actually need a balanced life in order to be able to continue to be productive, and that doing nothing but work and having no other having no life but work is absolutely unsustainable. And people who manage to do that for a while, they end up later on getting being burnt or depressed, or a series of mental illnesses and diseases, because it's absolutely unnatural. I mean, and women having to take care of their kids and other responsibilities towards the families, this should be accepted and appreciated, because at the end of days, we are bringing kids who are like a part of a family, and that family or household is led by a man. So a man who frowns upon a lady looking after her children while delivering and over-delivering in a job should have been abandoned by his mother as a child, because she obviously did not do a proper job bringing him up. If she's done that, we are the ones who bring them up, whether they're girls, how they believe in themselves, their self-perception, their understanding of their role as women in life, and the men as well, the responsibilities, their role, how to be supportive and understanding. we bring them up. So whenever I hear a lady complaining about a boss at work, a partner in life, or a son or whatever, the answer I always give them, the response is always like, they were brought up by a woman. We really need to teach our daughters and little girls how to look after themselves and how to bring up men who are appreciative of the role of a woman. Because it's like for every Sayyid out there, he was brought up by a lady who did not teach him the differences in roles between men and women, and we get that result out there. The pandemic has changed consumer behavior, or at least has accelerated the change. So purchasing online, the growth of e-commerce, wanting to have everything delivered to the house, making shopping online, like being not reliant, like putting the heavy weight on convenience was there. So the trend was there prior to COVID, but of course, COVID and the lockdown and the thing accelerated the rate of that adoption. The technological advancements and the growth of e-commerce itself has opened opportunities for ladies at home who have absolutely no background in doing business, to actually start small businesses, whether related to affiliate marketing, whether related to having their own digital shops, like companies like Amazon and the like. They've actually enabled women to have their own digital shops in there without having to worry about logistics, without having to take care of warehousing and shipping and the like. All you have to do is just build a digital shop, or like select the items you want to sell and actually doing the marketing for it, and then you make money, period. So the evolution of technology, the change in consumer behavior has helped like bring up new business models that are simple for first-time entrepreneur, a lady who's working from home, who has other responsibilities, or even a lady who's having a side gig aside from her career or a full-time job, definitely made that possible. On the fintech side of things, of course, the Central Bank of Egypt, the Financial Regulatory Authority, the government in general, they've been putting together, like building that nurturing environment for fintech startups, because again, fintech is the answer if you want to achieve inclusive economic growth. We've had like percentages of growth that were unprecedented right before the revolution and Mubarak's regime. But again, the impact of that could have only been felt for like the affluent, the high net worth individuals, like class A plus, A, perhaps B plus of the employees of the large corporates and the like, but the rest of the population didn't exactly get the feel or the sense of that. We have to achieve inclusion in general, not financial inclusion, but inclusion, because again, if you achieve social inclusion, financial inclusion is all about adding that layer of payments or a layer of micro saving or a layer of micro lending on top of a platform that's been offering a service that is needed in the society for everybody that is inclusive. So working on social inclusion and then followed by financial inclusion is definitely the way to achieve that economic growth. And women play a very important role in that, because once a man starts a business, yeah, he looks after himself and perhaps if he has a family or not, but once a woman starts a business, she supports multiple families offering jobs. She supports her own family in there. And we always have a concern about the well-being of the communities where we operate. We always have concerns for sustainability, and that's how we are wired. It's embedded in there, so you don't have to push for it. And yeah, I hope that has answered your question. Thank you.
That definitely answered my question. Open up new realms as well for us to discuss. But just on a point on that you and Mona both brought up, and that is about the normalizing of, well, the conditioning of women in business, As one of you were saying about, they don't have enough confidence to stand in front of the investors or something. And I think this is something that I have personally experienced working with a lot of women one-on-one, especially is we have been conditioned a lot with that you can't, you won't, you shouldn't. And this is something that we take with us inherently into business as well, into the business world. And it kind of shakes our belief in ourselves. And this is something I think that a lot of women are now waking up to and realizing I'm worthy and I need to do something about it. And I also will work on empowering the next generation, boys and girls, males and females, to be able to understand each other's roles and everything. And alongside that, as also you were saying, Noha, about the balance and stuff, I think of it more as synergy and something that we could be normalizing. And I hope that we normalize further and discuss further post-pandemic is about entrepreneurial wellness. How do you prioritize your health and your wellness and your well-being as an entrepreneur, especially as a woman, if you have multiple roles? Ola, from your perspective and talking about what kind of following up what Noha was saying, the regulatory part of business. And I think I touched on this when we spoke, you and I. We are seeing there have been announcements by the Prime Minister about how new businesses will be able to be registered and everything else. Can you shed a light on us? Can you shed a light on this for us? And accordingly, also, please let us know how this will impact us, especially women. And as we were discussing, women who have been rising through the pandemic with their own entrepreneurial ventures.
Sure. Actually, the country's initiative to facilitate the legal aspects for entrepreneur has shown significant support to the startups and entrepreneurial sector. And the recent strategic direction is to facilitate the establishment for entrepreneurs and to give them all the support they need to make things easy for them to start their business. And for example, like there's no need for physical office necessities, so they can just establish through virtual office and amongst other things, which shows it's such a positive impact for the entrepreneurs that will give them all the right support they need and to make things easy for them. And this also will impact the women, especially with the business transformation post-pandemic, that there's now the growth for e-commerce and everything is digital. So they have a lot of opportunities that they can tap into with a lot of shopping channels. And we've seen a lot of women who has embarked with their businesses, whether on Instagram or Facebook. So this will facilitate things for them, and it will make it easier and with less legal hassle and with less burden on them, because usually the legalities part can put some burden on them just from the thought of it, just the legal thing.
Yes.
So this will.
Anyone who thinks of a lawyer doesn't think of something easy.
Yes, exactly. So this will just put things more easy for them.
Okay. Do you see that we could be transitioning into a digital entrepreneurial world, such as one in Estonia or, the Cayman Islands or Delaware or something like that? Do you see that happening soon?
Could be, because the strategic direction of the country is actually to digitize everything. So yes, that could possibly happen.
I love that. Okay, so I'm so sad that Rania Ayman of Entrepreneurial, founder and CEO of Entrepreneurial, could not be able to join us with the technical difficulties that she's having signing in. But ladies, I would love to ask you kind of the wrap-up question and your thoughts on, from, again, post-pandemic transformation and womenpreneurship in Egypt. Where are you seeing the most opportunities, and where would you let's say, what are your hopes and aspirations as well on a personal and a professional level? Mona, let's start with you.
I think I'll go back to my starting point. Is I believe there's a lot of very successful female entrepreneurs and business leaders and professionals, actually across all walks of life, not just in entrepreneurship, you know, in the scientific industry, in government, sports, arts, etc., etc. And I would like us to celebrate, highlight, and showcase all of these successful stories a lot more, and have access to maybe structured or more formalized access to mentorship opportunities, training opportunities, funding opportunities. You know, the 4 E's that you mentioned, I think they all exist perhaps sporadically and independently of each other. And I'd love to see an initiative that brings everything together in one place, so that there is some sort of resource that women founders can go to and find out, okay, if education is what I need, what's available out there? If networking and connections are what I need, what are the female founder networks that I can join? If it's funding, what are the programs that are available for female founders? So for me, that would be, I think that would be on a very pragmatic level, that would be super useful and helpful right now.
I agree 100%. I'm working on something like that, but for the time being, it is very important, as you said, because even research for me, researching for this, it was like, oh, there's an initiative here, and there's a fund here, and there's USAID has this here. Visa just, you know, kind of just announced an initiative for women funding just for that. And it's just making sure that this is all accessible in a way that I know would fit me as a woman entrepreneur, whatever, no matter what kind of product or service I'm at, what phase I'm at in my business as well. As we were saying, whether we're talking about the idea stage or the launch stage or the traction or the scaling, whatever it is, this is quite important. And I hope that we get to bring join our forces to be able to do this together. Noha, your opportunities and thoughts and aspirations as well.
Opportunities are everywhere for every person, male or female, who has a dream. That dream can be fulfilled. So opportunities in building a digital business, building a business like manufacturing something, starting something. Opportunities are always there. It's just a matter of deciding upon it and then acting on it, and that makes everything feasible. Of course, nothing is as easy as that, but it all starts with a decision that you want to start your own thing, or you want to improve your life, or you want to make a change in your life. This is where it all starts, and then perseverance and the like. Access to information for women is integral to them getting the right support, to them deciding on the right industry, finding the right mentors, finding the right funders and source of early stage or capital in general. So it's access to information. And there's one thing that I always say, it takes women long years to develop a voice, to actually be heard, to be given the opportunity to go out there and be heard. So I encourage every woman there who was given the opportunity to have a voice, to actually use that voice to support and lift up other women, whether they're entrepreneurs, whether they are ladies in business, executives, whatever. Just use your voice to create a difference in other women's life. Because if we don't care about one another, nobody else is going to actually care about us. So I would love to see every woman take an initiative and doing something to help women, to help in general. Just give part of your time to support, to create opportunities, to help. mentoring lady entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in general, offering seed funding if you have access to money, offering discounted services to startups if you are running your own consultancy or you offer services to startups. Just do something to help and support. For me, I would love to see many platforms that are there that can offer women voices, and other platforms that can support women, and not support, just let us change the narrative. Just offer opportunities. Women do not need support. Women need to be offered opportunities. So I wish to see many of those platforms out there. Thank you.
I love that. I love that, Noha. Thank you so much. And one of the things that Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi say is your day 10 is someone else's day 1, or the other way around. So you're on day 10, someone is on day 1, and just you don't have to be at day 1000, but just being day 10, you could still support those on day 1. You could still help them with that first step and with being able to share. I took it as an oath to myself, as realizing a few years ago is I'm abundant. I'm abundant with the knowledge, with the experience, with everything that I've got. I don't have everything I'm working towards, but that makes me abundant, that I can still share, and that will never take away from me. And that is something very important, as you said, to be able to share and to give the opportunity to have a voice. And I love that each of you in your own way have been giving a voice to women and men to be able to stand up and say, this is an opportunity, this is something I do, this is how I can support you. Ola, from your perspective, where are you seeing the opportunities, and what are your wishes and dreams?
Well, I see that there's a lot of opportunities have opened its door to women that they can take on, and especially across all the industries, and the digital world, which can actually help them to have like a work-life balance. So it will give them what they exactly need to balance their life. And I wish that I would see more womenpreneurs actually, and more ladies getting into having their own businesses. And achieving more success in their lives, and and one of the things that I would like to stress on is for them to handle the legalities from the early start, just to save any possible downturns for them.
Yep, that is important as well. Thank you so much, Ola. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ladies, this has been really insightful and valuable. Mona Al-Khishin, Noha Shaker, Ola Sleman, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today. And I look forward to many more conversations to share more experiences and to highlight more of the amazing initiatives that you are doing to support women and men, but to support the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Egypt.
Thank you, Dr. Hanan. Thank you.
Ladies. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Okay, so this was our panel discussion. Let me just start organizing here. And now we're on to our next panel discussion, the transformation of womenpreneurship in post-pandemic Egypt, this time talking about the investments and funding. Oh my God, I went blank for a second there. And we've had, it was supposed to be a panel, but again, we understand that some conditions could happen, and we could be, as women, we have many roles, and we have traveling, and we have a lot of other roles and responsibilities. But Hanan Abdel Megid, thank you so much for being here, founder and CEO of Camelizer Technology.
Thank you, Hanan. It's always great. It's my first time to be on a panel with another Hanan, so that's a first for me. Hi.
Thank you. I'm happy, and Angie is here. Angie, thank you so much for being here.
Not at all, not at all. Hanan, I was just telling Hanan El Basha that even if she had not called me up to be on this panel, I would have happily lobbied to get the chance to be moderating a fireside chat with Hanan Abdel Majid.
Thank you.
So let me give you guys some backstory. So for most of you, she's like the tech entrepreneur turned mega investor. For me, like fresh out of university, joining Link to work on their finance team, it was the aha moment of, oh wow, women can be in tech and they can be CEO of a tech company and they can do it looking super cool and be very down to earth. And that was like life changing for I think most of my generation. And Hanan, I'm super excited to be here today.
Thank you, Angie. I'm super excited. You have, I love your energy, and this is how I thrive. Honestly, I was watching the previous panel, يعني, with Mona, Noha, and Ola. Amazing, amazing energy, and we're living in a good time.
Alhamdulillah, yeah.
We're definitely living in a good time, and it's my honor to highlight this. I'll actually drop out of the stage, or actually I'll just go drop out of the spotlight. Inji will be leading this conversation, in this fireside chat with you. It is an honor, ladies. Thank you so much, and I will leave you to it. Angie, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you, thank you. So I attended most of the previous panel. It was so great to hear such strong women talking about the entrepreneurship landscape in Egypt. But most of the times, most of the studies have also highlighted that generally when women tend to approach entrepreneurship, it's never to solve a problem that they themselves are facing. It's not like when a guy approaches entrepreneurship. So it's usually for something that's going to impact society, their family, the greater good. So there tends to be such a strong social entrepreneurship drive in the type of entrepreneurship that women try to champion. And usually that's the type of entrepreneurship that's tougher to fund for and to raise funds for. So Hanan, I wanted to hear your views on what kind of entrepreneurship topics or themes you've been seeing come your way towards Camelizers or any of your other investment pursuits, or even like the startups that actually approach you to take up space in Consolea. And generally, if you've been noticing any trends in terms of industry focus, the way they go about things.
So you mentioned a very important point that women tend to look at the problem from a more of a society and equality improvement. And I'm always very careful when I discuss to generalize. So I'm going to focus on my perspective, which can be different from other people's perspectives. So I'm going to tell you something that I found myself always when I approach a problem saying this would improve the quality of life, this would improve society, etc. And this is truly what I care for. I truly love to work in the ecosystem of the Middle East in a period of time when I was part of the Orascom executive team, and we were catering in the international and European market. It was super exciting, but not as exciting as working in the region, because I always like to address something that's very relevant to us or to my surroundings, to my community. But one of the things that I've learned throughout the way is something that I call the layer of transparency. Is if I'm presenting to someone else who cares about the financial dimension, I would present, and most of the investment community cares for that, I make sure that I present the opportunity in all its financial potential dimensions, etc. And then I finish with this point so that you don't offend, you order your priorities and the way you present in a way that caters for the audience priorities. So this is something that I've seen women, by the way, not do a lot, but this is something that I've learned throughout the years. As far as trends, again, every era, I think fintech is a huge focus, and it's in line with the country priorities, logistics and investments also in the infrastructure for that and for the food tech, and this is something that's extremely high on that. And just as a disclaimer, I focus on the pre-seed and the angel investment side, not on the VC growth stage. So I always see things when they're a bit on the rise. And we're lucky that at these times, honestly, as Mona was sharing in the previous panel, COVID resulted in a lot of mature entrepreneurs who were in corporates deciding to venture and build their own companies and startups. And at a lucky time where the value chain of money and funding in Egypt is happening. So I would say, again, we're living in good times.
No, that's great. I think that's very useful feedback to a lot of the younger women entrepreneurs in terms of structuring their message in a way that's more effective when pitching to investors or to a wider audience. Do you think there are other sort of key development areas or key tips you can give them that you've noticed, things they've been doing earnestly in a lot of the panels you've been sitting on that tend to be a trend?
I was discussing with Hanan when I accepted to be part of the panel that I believe that we need more women angel investors. And I look up to the efforts of Ola Dajani and Tia Angels and Amal Anan and Minouche and all these funds that are led by women and have a gender length focus. I think this is super important because they can understand and push, and as you've mentioned, present some role models for women to relax while they're approaching the problem, relax while they're pitching. I'll tell you, I'm focused on the angel investment is more of a, what they call the belief economy. So belief is very important that you present with very strong trust, because trust is contagious. I've seen, I don't want to generalize, but I've seen a lot of women who have these insecurities that bubble up, even when they're very confident in their message. And sometimes this affects the belief at the start. And it's very important. This can be understood by women angel investors. This can be understood and can be relaxed also by having a woman on the panel. So that's why I'm saying also, it's super important to have women in the VC community, women in the angel investment side. The core message is enjoy it and present with confidence and talk about it. You've done an amazing job, so just reflect it. Don't worry about what other things, think about it.
Okay, no, fair enough. I've been talking to a lot of young female entrepreneurs as part of different accelerator incubator programs. And one of the things that they constantly get told that because you're not very tech centric, we're worried about your scalability. So could you shed some light on how a company that's not in its core a coding company can use technology to be tech enabled in order to boost their scalability, and how women can go about it in a way that makes them more appealing to potential investment?
I would say this is a general problem with women and men. If you don't have the technical or digital DNA, I think the problem is getting solved by also the generations. The new generations are much more digital than the previous ones. Digital is like the new way of life, so they're integrated. They can address the scalability problem in much better ways. There is a huge trend, and I'm sure you're aware of it, of no-code startups. Coding is becoming like the second layer after you test your idea. With all the amazing tools that exist, you can practically build your MVP without writing a single line of code. So one thing to gain confidence, again, it's a belief economy, it's a trust economy. So to gain trust, humans are very tangible people. So you can go online and build a mock-up that is interactive, build something that's very physical so that you can demonstrate your ideas, have clarity on all the elements that affect your idea. But definitely having some steps ahead using the no-code opportunities that exist on the internet is one of the ways to lower the fears. The second is, of course, like any team, it needs all dimensions. You need a very strong technical people to be on board if this is essential and by onboarding these talents and completing the team, for men and women, this gives a lot of confidence in the way ahead.
No, I get you. Fair enough. I also meant to ask you about generally the challenges that you feel face you when you're trying to identify potential entrepreneurs that can be part of the pipeline of industries that you are interested in or looking at. Do you feel there's an awareness issue or some sort of information asymmetry with regard to women entrepreneurs finding the right investors and trying to find the right chemistry or the right mix?
In my opinion, one of the core things that we lack, we need to work on is more information on our industry and our market and all the dynamics related to it. Sometimes one of the challenges is I meet a lot of very interesting people with very interesting ideas, but their awareness of the surroundings, the dynamics that are affecting the problems is not always as mature as it should be. This is changing again, like I said, by having a lot of mature entrepreneurs like Mona and all the great people that are coming in with corporate experience, with previous experience, because there's a kind of a concept that all entrepreneurs should be very early, start very early, and sometimes even you can start early, you can start after you have some corporate experience, but one thing for sure, you have to get your hands and in the issues itself and experience it by trying to do things that do not scale even at the start. I think this is something that people don't understand quite well. We talk about it, do things that do not scale, and get involved with the problem early on. But most of the people tend to try and build and then test when it's mostly complete.
No, I got you. Amel, I'm not sure if you can hear us. I know you're dialing in from an airport very briefly.
Yes, no, I can hear you. I'm here.
Perfect. Hey, how are you?
Good. Good to see everyone here.
Likewise. Thank you for making it. Hanan and I were just discussing sort of the investment imperative with regard to women entrepreneur. So we were discussing what are sort of the key tips or the key success factors that we could communicate to the women listening in order to work on their pitch to be more effective or have a business model that's more solid before they come to you.
I'd actually want to emphasize for women entrepreneurs something that Hanan just said, which is basically testing very early. So I see across entrepreneurs, there's sometimes, particularly for women, they want to perfect everything first before they go to market and before they go to investors. So there's a tendency to sort of, have the perfect business model built first, perfect the product before you even try to see if this is the product that customers want. And so I lean into what's called the lean startup model. And I highly recommend this book to most entrepreneurs that are starting, which is just, just a even quick and dirty MVP or minimum viable product, just very quick surveys, very quick products test with, is this what the customer is that you think what they want? Is this what they really want? How much are they willing to pay for it? What's out there? What is the universe of decisions that they're making? And go to investors early as well. And I know it's hard. And I think, some women, and or speaking for myself, sometimes we're shy and we don't, there's the fear of rejection, or there's a fear of, not wanting to feeling that you're out of place, or imposter syndrome, and feeling like this is not the right moment for you to talk to investors. You want to build first, get customers, get revenues, and then talk to them. And but the earlier you talk, the more you're on their radar, you get their feedback, you stay, whether it's a yes or no, that's fine, but you build those relationships, you build those connections, which are very important. So my biggest advice is usually start early and fail. And it's fine if you fail. So hopefully you succeed right away or at some point. Sometimes you take another job, you go into corporate, like Hanan said, you build some experience somewhere, or build this experience within a startup or within an investment firm. There are so many avenues, but keep it moving and keep going is one of the critical things to learn and continue growing.
On that note, to Hanan and to Amal both, have you had cases where a woman came in, pitched a specific idea or a specific startup, didn't get the funding, and then 2 years later came back with a completely different business?
I say yes, across both women and men, but I think, but I've definitely seen with women. Sometimes I've seen a case where someone had a pure digital platform and couldn't fundraise for it, and so she had to then start with the product first and then go back to the digital platform. I say this often, and I think sometimes women are over mentored and are getting less funding, and without funding, you don't survive. But what I did love about this particular entrepreneur is that she, found another product for which she can generate cash flow and generate revenues, which wasn't a digital platform then. And then from there used, the brand and the presence and the following that she had on Instagram and social media to then fundraise and able to build out the rest of the digital platform. So I think there are different avenues to getting where you want. But one of the biggest things I say, at some point, mentoring more and more is only going to get you so far, or keep getting grants and winning prizes gets you so far. I think there's a big responsibility for investors to also fund those business ideas and those women, in order for them to really launch and sustain and survive.
All right, no, thank you. In addition to sort of the investment layer, do you feel that increasingly, whether like through a platform like Consolea or through even like your investment platforms, there are more and more business matchmaking happening? So like instead of access to finance, it's actually access to sales in a sense, by introducing them to a wider network of companies or more successful startups, that scale ups that have grown a lot faster, where there could be interesting opportunities for business collaboration.
I would say, again, I feel that we're living the good times. I see that the opportunities are opening up. Funds like Amal Fund and with a gender length focus, pushing a lot of women and opportunities for them, giving them more confidence. A lot of the networking opportunities are there for you to grab them. And maybe I just wanted to comment on the last question, Inji, because this is a syndrome that I've also seen, that sometimes women over access to finance is a problem that both women and men as entrepreneurs have a problem with. And sometimes when you troubleshoot, why aren't you getting access to funds? You should not always be hooked on I'm not getting it because I'm a woman, maybe because I need to present my pitch, maybe the business model, maybe the product. So it's very important that you have a holistic view at the business, irrespective of your gender. And I have to tell you something on that note, maybe it's a bit personal, and thank you for in the introduction saying our relationship and the Orascom and the Link.net process. Honestly, I feel that a very big part of why I succeeded is I always treated myself not as a special case, but as a normal person, fighting very hard to do what I love and what I do. So I never treated myself as a special case. So it's very important that women founders, as they pitch, they don't treat themselves as a special case, don't present themselves as a special case. It's always a plus, by the way, at these times, if you're a women founder, because there are a lot of incentives. The environment is extremely, extremely friendly. And I can assure all women that a lot of investors are looking for great women founders. So if definitely, I'm not belittling the challenges, but definitely it's a much more hospitable environment than the era before. The opportunities are definitely there.
All right.
And Inji, I'd like to add to your question on, sometimes when you're pitching investors, that you end up getting more customers, or pitching, you increase your sales chances and revenues through other channels. That actually particularly happened with me at Consolea. I remember Hanan introducing me to a female founder the founder of Stellar, one of the platforms sort of like Upwork, but for the larger market, putting teams together for your marketing and branding needs and graphic designs. And I actually needed that because I was just starting the fund. And so we couldn't invest because we were still starting the fund and fundraising, but I ended up not only using that platform but also introducing it to so many other founders as they are starting their journey and wanting to do the very basics around content and social media presence and putting teams together for graphic design and branding solutions. So I think sometimes, just being in the presence of other startups, and I think co-working spaces really provide that, where, you build community and build people around you, and then you have other investors, whether you may not fall into their mandate or they're into their investment thesis, but they introduce you to other investors, they introduce you to other founders, and, just putting yourself out there is at a minimum the first step.
No, that's great. That's a very happy story. Thank you, Amal, for sharing.
Happy, Amal.
Pennsylvania is full of happy stories. I have to say, it's a happy place.
Yeah.
So I was hoping each of you can pick like her two favorite cases or examples of startups you've invested in that were women-led, and sort of share with us why they were such huge hits for you, or why you connected with their businesses or their stories. Amal, I'm very conscious that you have a flight, so do you want to go first?
Sure. So one of the investments that I've made during my time at the Egyptian American Enterprise Fund was Dewi Clinics, which is founded by Magda Habib and Mayroz. And for me, again, it was an extremely rewarding and fulfilling experience, because I had known Magda throughout her time at Fawri, and I just followed her career. I was so impressed by her execution capabilities, her operation mode of conduct, and it was extremely inspiring. So I kept following her even after she left Fawri and she wasn't sure yet what she wants to do. And she started consulting, and then ended up co-founding Dewi Clinics with Nader Iskandar and Mayroz. And it was such a meaningful investment, because you can see how it's just truly impacting the lives of Egyptians. It's a chain of primary healthcare clinics targeting the middle class, and with their price point and training of the doctors and providing accessible and affordable healthcare to Egyptians. But also just working with other women on the transaction was just great, because we knew how to resolve conflicts. We negotiated very efficiently, and there was a shared objective, and then the rest is just business business or commercial priorities for the both of us that we managed to resolve. So I felt like very happy with how efficient the transaction went, and I also have the impact of that transaction. So she's someone who really inspired me to do more of that, because I think women can be extremely powerful leaders in their sectors, in their chosen respective sectors, and really deliver impact. And we're continuing to look at more women founders that I think have such powerful stories. One of my favorites I didn't end up investing in, but Yalla Fasikta, I think it's extremely powerful to see more women in logistics and mobility, and kind of doing something where you don't typically find more women entrepreneurs. Similarly, Farah Imara in agri-tech and fresh food produce, again in logistics. So the more, you were not typically used to seeing women in women Uber drivers or women in very operational roles. But I think, Hanan herself is such a renowned operator, and showing more examples of that. Like, women don't need necessarily to be just sitting in banks or taking desk jobs, but are very, very resilient and have proven to be great in the field. So that's something that really excites me.
No, thank you. These are amazing examples. Thank you so much, Ahmed. Hanan, I'd love to hear some of yours.
Yeah, I'm seeing one of them online, Dina Hashish. She's the founder of, I did not yet invest, but she's driving an amazing startup that focus on inclusion. And the ones that I invested in, Stellar, Amal Nounou Ghanem is an amazing young woman, and she has an amazing drive. I think most of you will know her name very soon through the amazing work that she's done. There is also Amira Gharib. She's a co-founder of Orcas. She's not a very loud, present kind of figure. But for me, I've seen her during the times when Hussam had his military service and the company was going through a critical condition, and she managed honestly to get all the company together and take it. I was so impressed. And one thing I have to tell you, Inji, is that I learn a lot with these interactions. I learn from the young women also, because the times are different. The way they approach problems with more stamina is different, less fear, it's different. Gehad Abdallah, who's the founder of Mermaid, in such a tough business. And she's always, there's a photo of her where she's playing sport and she has this facial expression. And I always tell her, you're my fighter. She has a fighter spirit. Not all of these startups, again, like Amal said, not all of them will encounter, you can win and you can lose, but the most important thing is that you persevere and you learn and you move from one thing to another. So I've enjoyed every one of these journeys and still enjoying, learning, and honestly very proud of the potential that they can achieve. I know that I've seen one of the questions that people are complaining that not enough women. Agreed, we're still at the start of the journey. Not enough women are part of the VC community. Not enough women are part of the innovation and deep tech technology. This is the truth, but everything we do is working towards that. That's why I'm encouraging, and I hope also to see a lot of the women. I see Rada Hamouda also on in the audience, and a lot of the people, Yasmin Farid, and a lot of great women pushing. I would hope to see them as part of the angel investment community, because this will ensure that we will have totally different numbers and we will move the needle on this one.
Okay, no, fair enough. Amal, would you like to comment also on Nahil's question regarding to why there's such a low percentage of VC funding that's actually being driven towards women-led businesses?
I mean, it's true, and it's a global phenomena. Less than 2%, globally, only 2% of VC funding went to women. When you look at just the region, it's around 12 or 16%, depending on whether you're looking at Africa or the Middle East, but only that's the only number that went to women. So it's depressing, but it's changing. And I have to say, it will actually change negatively over the last year. But one of the struggles that we have is that lack of access to data. So at Lotus, we've launched a new survey to try and collect more data on female founders. We're doing another study with another organization to gather more data on how many female founders are there, what's their struggles with access to finance, and getting more data, because I think that's a starting point to try and see why this number is low and how we can change it. But like Hanan said, there's so much happening now that gives me hope that this is changing. More awareness around it, more access to finance, more talent, and overall, like we know that the entrepreneurship landscape in Egypt and the Middle East is still nascent. Recently, over the last 2 to 3 years, we've seen more talent coming into the market, leaving consulting and investment banking jobs and corporate jobs to go into entrepreneurship, and it's become de-risked with more VC funding. And of that, more women are coming in, but I think there's more work to be done to enable more women to take these risks, because at the end of the day, entrepreneurship is risk-taking. And without providing a conducive environment for women to be able to take these risks, and whether it's going into startups and working at growth stage companies first to be able to then launch their own companies, or having access to finance and the means and the abilities to join that movement, if this is what they want, right? But I think it would be great to see more women in tech, because there's we want the technology to be elevating entire communities and societies, and I think that could only be done when it's truly inclusive and diverse. And definitely that means having more women represented in how we in unleashing their creativity and innovation and designing technologies that answer for our needs today. I'm hopeful, and I think there's a lot that's being done from all the people with us here today and across the room, Reda, Hanan, Nidhi Tahri, everyone really has been doing so much to move the needle, and we're all trying, and I'm really hopeful this is going to change.
No, thank you very much, Ahmed. I also meant to ask the two of you, maybe it's because like at the moment I moved back to corporate, so my interaction with startups is mainly in like a mentorship capacity, but a lot of the ones I end up on the table with have a very strong social entrepreneurship lens. So they're women who are trying to do things with like heritage preservation or maintaining crafts in remote regions in Egypt, and making sure those women have access to sort of better markets, or the craft gets used in a more modern kind of way, or they're trying to do things that are like decentralizing journalism or democratizing journalism. So it's always things with a slightly more social impact component. So do you feel there are enough like specialized tracks for women with startups with that kind of focus that would help them become more investment ready in a sense, especially that they're not your typical tech based and they're not the most scalable, and there's a limit to how much they can grow?
I know there are a few. There's not nearly enough for all the great social impact that women can want to work on and do. I think now that the Mahousa has a great social innovation incubator and platform. I think all the incubators honestly also cater to some social enterprises, and we don't need to label them as social enterprises. Sometimes also, like for me, Dairy Clinics was one where it has a huge, social impact for sure. But at the end of the day, we being able to look at it from a financial perspective and see how it's financially sustainable and could attract third-party capital and become investable is something that helps a lot with its sustainability. That said, there's a lot to be done on diversifying sources of funding, because not every enterprise or every venture could be funded by VCs. There are, we need more innovation around the financial products that are available for different solutions to really create, for the arts is different, for social enterprises, depending on the business model and how they want to grow. Not everything needs to be growing at a 10x speed. Some shouldn't be. But that also means we need more innovative financial products to cater to different companies and to different projects and solutions to really have a great diverse economy.
Edgy, I just wanted to also comment. I think the opportunities are there. Not all companies should be startups. And again, there's a very big push that everyone needs to be an entrepreneur. Everything needs to be a startup. The world needs amazing companies that are profitable and that has a social impact side. So this is something that we need to be aware of and be conscious. If this is the case, then there's nothing to worry about. Just focus and succeed. One thing that honestly, I see a very strong twist that is happening with the social media presence and the Gen Z awareness that they need to there are a lot of sustainability goals that are becoming even more and more important from a commercial perspective and from a strength perspective of any business. We're living in the we're very lucky again. I know I'm super optimistic, but I see that things are happening in a good way. We're living in a creator economy era. So anyone who's really succeeding in building and moving the agenda in a socially related item, if they build enough traction for themselves and enough focus, and with the social media and with a lot of venues and opportunities that are there, they can take their solution that is essentially not super scalable, but with the reach that they develop and the follower base that they develop, they can transform it into a super scalable and increase the investability of the opportunity. And they can end up expanding their focus. Some of the startups that I've seen, women who have a focus on education and different aspects of a vertical, very niche aspect of education. She ended up with 1.5 million follower base that led to her developing now her app and pushing also products that are related to the things that she, so this is what I mean. This is a creator economy. This is Gen Z as a priority. The world is changing, so you definitely can improve the investability of the companies by thinking in a creator economy mode.
No, that's a very fair point. I also meant to ask the two of you, at the moment I'm in the fintech space, so we're foreseeing a lot of consolidations happening in that space, with a lot of startups existing in parallel trying to address the same need and fighting for investment, actually coming together to either partner on solutions or to even create a wave of mergers and acquisitions. So what's your respective views on that beyond the fintech sector? Do you see that happening in a lot of other sectors? Do you think it's a good thing? I'm happy to hear your thoughts.
I think there will be more consolidation happening. This naturally started with fintech because it's one of the areas where you can really see the benefits of scale right away. And I think some companies can only survive at scale for, such as payments. I mean, I thought sort of the success of Bowery was built on the infrastructure and the scale that they managed to have as a first mover in payments in Egypt. But we'll see more of that in healthcare. Education may be a little bit different, but I could be wrong. I think it will happen eventually. Transportation for sure. And at this point, we're talking more Pan-Africa consolidations or Middle East and Africa, because we're going to see more companies who have raised bigger rounds of funding, whether in Nigeria or UAE, expanding into Egypt and doing that more through acquisitions and vice versa. Some of the Egyptian startups, as they scale, and we've seen people do that, as they expand their geographic reach, they're doing that more through acquisitions. And similar with Paymap going into Pakistan, one of the routes you always take is whether you go for a license and start yourself in a foreign country or a new market, or you acquire an existing player if there's a fit. Acquisitions are obviously, and consolidations it's very difficult as well. It's very difficult to find the right acquisition target or the partner and do the integration and the cultural integration. And it's, Hanan can talk more at length about that, having been through a consolidation early on in her career, but I think they're extremely difficult. But I think we'll be seeing more of that across sectors in the coming period as companies scale beyond Egypt, and as other companies look to open up in Egypt as well.
No, thank you very much. Hanan?
The economic conditions that we're living and the outlook of how things are, we're kind of entering an era where there is a storm that is coming on a global level. So definitely the wise people would think realistically on what's the next step. That's why funding, if you're funding, you have to grab the funding if you're expanding and seeing a mutual opportunity with a consolidation. And this is that's why we're seeing these accelerated movement. These are different times, and different times requires different measures. I agree that also the consolidation with more and more startups are growing regional and across borders with the consolidation. But that's also another aspect, because we totally understand that the multi-market kind of startup have higher chances of resilience and have higher chances also of reaching the ambitious goals of being the unicorn and realizing all the scalability targets. We're going to see more and more of these consolidations. And as a word of advice for all the startups that are out there, definitely also fundraising, you need to grab what is there and move on, and you need to be realistic and these are very tough times ahead of us. They're great. It will present opportunities for a lot of people, but also being realistic will help you survive and thrive, hopefully.
All right, perfect. Thank you. On that note, I'd love to get a few closing remarks from each of you on how you see sort of the future of funding when it comes to the women entrepreneurship space in Egypt. So maybe, Ahmed, we can start with you. Final remarks.
It's hard to, not be optimistic when Hanan is here because she's the super optimist amongst us. I am optimistic for women entrepreneurs. I think the storm that Hanan mentioned is already here. We're not even waiting for it. I think it has taken the market, and it's going to be tough. I think the next at least 6 months, if not year and a half, 2 years, are going to be incredibly tough. But this is a real opportunity for women entrepreneurs to shine because they are resilient. And I think, when we talked about lack of funding to female founders, this will be impacted even more during, the coming, I don't want to call it recession, but during the coming tough storm. However, if anything, the women entrepreneurs have not been spoiled over the last period by easy funding and easy money. And so their businesses are actually built more resiliently. They're on a path to profitability earlier on because they didn't know anything else but how to become, cash flow positive earlier because their businesses, they weren't just able to grab funding all the time as their counterparts did. So this is a real opportunity for their resilience to shine, for them to come to market and build, the things more sustainably and more resiliently from the get-go. So I'm excited for them, and I want to say it's going to be tough for them, but they're up for the challenge and the fight, and it's going to be tough for everyone. So let's brace it all together. Let's brace the storm.
You're on mute, Inge.
Sorry, I was saying great thoughts. Hanan, any final thoughts from your side?
I'm just saying, let's keep the momentum. I love the participation, and like Amal was saying, numbers are not good, but things are changing. So let's be optimistic and let's participate. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to be an angel investor. You have to be a supporter and a participator like yourself, Inji, like Yasmin Farid who's in the audience, like Dina, like Rada Hamouda. You can be in the corporate, and just being there, participating in the discussions, participating in supporting the women throughout their journey will definitely have the positive impacts we're hoping for.
No, that's great. So Hanan El Basha, back to you.
Thank you so much, ladies. This has been so rich. I'm like writing notes and stuff. I don't know. I hope I'm going to be able to encompass all the valuable insights that you have shared today. It is an honor and a pleasure. Thank you for accepting the invitation and for sharing your wisdom and your experience as well from your end. I look forward to have more of these conversations. I think this is just from my end. This is the first interaction that we've had, but I'm sure it's not the last. Inji, thank you so much for moderating. Like, I love your questions, so like I'm writing notes as well. Amal, thank you for joining from the airport. Hanan, I can't wait to spend more time with you and to kind of visit Consulia for sure. Thank you, ladies, and I'm wishing you an amazing day.
Thank you, Inji. Thank you, Amal. Thank you, Hanan.
No, thank you all very much. Have a great day. Bye-bye. For everyone else joining us today, thank you so much for joining us. I'm just, again, this has been an amazing experience to be able, and an honor to be able to lead Egypt's celebrations in the World Business Angel Investors Week, which is one of the highlights of the celebrations that the World Business Angel Investment Forum does on an annual basis. And just to share with you, today we had an amazing lineup of prominent women entrepreneurs and women being very actively involved in the Egyptian entrepreneurial ecosystem. My special thanks go to, and I want to read this because I don't want to miss anyone for sure. This is Naveen Tahri, of course, Parliament member and chairperson of Delta Inspire for Investment, on the business panel that addressed the women transformation of womenpreneurship in post-pandemic Egypt. We had Noha Shaker, who's the founder and secretary general of the Egyptian FinTech Association.
We had Ala Soliman of the founder and managing partner of 360 Legal. We had Mona Al-Khishin, who is the co-founder and CEO of the Egyptian Professional Network. And then we had the transformation of womenpreneurship in post-pandemic Egypt, the funding and investment lens, which we had just seen. We had Inja Amr, who is a senior managing consultant with MasterCard Advisors, running the conversation, along with Amal Anan, who is the managing partner of Lotus Capital, and Hanan Abdel Megid, who is the founder and CEO of Camelizer Technology. I also want to take the opportunity to thank the ladies who have accepted the invitation, and I know that they couldn't be with us today just for really, really pressing matters. But Rania Ayman is the founder and CEO of Entrepreneurship, Alal Dajani, the chair of the steering committee of Tia in Angels, and Iman Wahbi, general partner of Growing Africa Fund. These ladies have been very gracious in accepting the invitation, have had pressing circumstances that they could not attend the discussion, but have still had an amazing role, an amazing active role in the Egyptian entrepreneurial ecosystem. So just to kind of hopefully recap just a few of the findings and the valuable insights that were shared today. Yes, it is tough times. Post-pandemic economies are going through the storm, as the ladies has just shared, going through the storm, but there's still opportunities that exist. These opportunities are not limited to, but do include the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. They also offer social entrepreneurship opportunities, both giving lucrative opportunities for women to be involved. The women you have heard today have one thing definitely in common, and I think Mrs. Navina Tahri had said that they don't take no for an answer, which means they have tried and tried again. They're the embodiment of what made them survive through the pandemic, and that includes the agility and the ability to pivot and to shift. And from that, they were able to build resilient businesses and resilient roles within the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We need more women signing checks, which means we need more angel investors, and we need more women on the investment side, because they have possibly a different lens to look at women-owned and women-led businesses, access to information and to networks. I think there's a saying that goes, your network equals your net worth. Access to information and networks is important. There is no shortage of initiatives and programs within Egypt, whether we're talking on the governmental level, on the semi-governmental level, or on the private level, but more women need to access them and to be able to know them, so they know what is not only available for them, but what is more fitting for them. It's not just about the mentorship, or even that as well, we might need more of, but it is also about the ability to know that there is something beyond that, taking your business from just the idea stage to the launch, growth, and scaling stage. We need more inclusion, or we need inclusion to be inclusive. I believe that Noha had said that it's not just about financial inclusion. We also need the social inclusion. We need the economic, and we need empowerment from that perspective. And that is what inclusion would be talking about. We need more voices, more women voices to be heard on more platforms, it's not there to complain, but it is an ability or an opportunity to voice the concerns and to voice the challenges that are there, and to collectively think of the solutions that could be offered. Technology, as we said, there might not be enough on the technology or women involvement in the technology side, but we do know, and this is something that has arisen from the pandemic, is that technology is an enabler. Even if the business is not tech-based, it could be tech-enabled, and that definitely supports the scaling of a business. And last but not least, we need to be realistic with our expectations with funding, as Hanan Abdel Megid has just been sharing. Again, as part of the storm, the funding might be relatively limited at this point in time, but we need to understand and be more aware of the business needs and take the funding as it goes, and understand what to do with it to get the maximum output and the maximum usage for the funding that is available. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been an absolute honor to be hosting this event, and I look forward to interacting more with you and to be able to share more from Egypt's entrepreneurial ecosystem that has been rising and that has been going through so many transitions since the Arab Spring and since the revolution of 2011. And more importantly, over the last few years, we have seen a lot of the initiatives, and we have seen a lot of the programs that have been there to support entrepreneurship and to support women entrepreneurs in Egypt. So please, your day too could be supporting someone else's day one. Speak up, offer the opportunities, offer your knowledge, your experiential knowledge to those that are in need. Empower the women around you to be able to find their voice and to be able to find their entrepreneurial spirit and to take it beyond. Once again, thank you for joining us, and I'm wishing you a very great afternoon from the sunny side of the land of the pharaohs from Egypt. Thank you and goodbye for now.